and welcome to Friday Night Movies, where I decorate a set of cookies based on a movie I love. So if you enjoy watching cookie decorating and want to learn about Kindergarten Cop, do keep watching. So Kindergarten Cop was released on December 21st, 1990. It has a 53% on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 52%. Yikes, I can't say that I agree with that one. So here I have my color palette all set up and ready to go for the cookies. And next you'll see me just prepping the cookies and doing flooding on them so I can start putting the designs on top. Now, if you haven't seen Kindergarten Cop, it is about a cop named John Kimball, who loves his car, and he has the job of finding the estranged ex-wife and child of a drug lord to finally get all the evidence they need in order to indict him for his crimes. So he and his new partner are to go to Astoria, Oregon for an undercover mission at the child's school where they hope to identify him and the ex-wife. But things don't go quite as planned when Phoebe, the partner, gets food poisoning, leaving the big, intimidating John Kimball in charge of being the kindergarten teacher instead. Now, would this happen in real life? I seriously doubt it. Is it entertaining? Of course it is. Now, even though its reviews aren't great, it did very well. It grossed $202 million with a filming budget of $26 million and remains a cult classic. The movie was directed by Ivan Reitman and stars, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Pamela Reed, who plays Phoebe, his partner, Richard Tyson, who plays the villain, Crispin, I can't remember. Carol Baker plays his creepy mom who weirded me out so much as a kid. Linda Hunt as the principal, Miss Schwalski. There's a few other familiar faces throughout the movie, including Heidi Swedberg, who is probably most known for playing George's fiance on Seinfeld, and Kathy Moriarty from Raging Bull. Angela Bassett is super randomly in it, also before she really became famous. She plays the flight attendant on their way to Oregon. Very few of the kids pursued acting as adults, but have successful careers, some behind the camera and still in the entertainment industry, and others elsewhere. So the quote that I put on this cookie, you'll see in a couple seconds, isn't from the actual scene where he's singing Old MacDonald. It's actually from the beginning of the movie, but I thought it was a perfect summary of his character. He's this big, brawny, and serious cop throughout the movie, but he ends up really enjoying being a teacher, and he works really well with the kids. They seem to really soften his heart, and I just thought this was a perfect summary of that. Now, the cookie set I did is pretty much going to be based all around some of the more well-known quotes, as a lot of this movie is kind of dark. Now, it's considered an action comedy, and although the serious scenes are unintentionally funny because of the ridiculous plot and overacting, it's the funnier parts that I wanted to highlight in the cookies, of course. So let's talk a little bit about Arnold. He, of course, is one of, if not the best action star of all time. But he's also so effortlessly funny, and his work with Ivan Reitman, the director, really showed people his sense of humor. They did the movies Twins, Kindergarten Cop, and Junior together. Some of my favorite movies growing up, also over the top and ridiculous, but so good. He was so typecasted for years and years with just, action movies, and Reitman was the first one to give him a chance at comedy with Twins. And a couple years ago, he said on The Late Show that Kindergarten Cop was his favorite movie that he did. He loved working with the kids, but he also started having children around the same time. So he was happy to have a movie that they could also enjoy. He also kind of jokingly said that he got to play Kindergarten Cop again when he was governor of California. I don't even know what to say about that. So I'm just adding the final touches to the hat with some food coloring painting. I'm adding the quote here. This is the quote that he says at the beginning of the movie when he's in the mall and he's in the hair salon and he's he's apprehending Crisp, and he yells at the security guards that he's a cop. He says, "I'm a cop, you idiot." And it's just so funny the way he says things. So the first cookie is completed. I really like adding that black outline to especially like portraits or characters. I really like the dimension it gives, and it kind of almost looks like a sticker. I think I'm going to try to do that a lot more because I really like how polished and like 3D it looks almost. Now this cookie is of my favorite scene of the movie. Kimball at this point doesn't know who Crisp's kid is in the classroom, so he makes a game where each kid has to talk about what their dad does for a living in order to try to find out which kid is his. And it shows each kid just hilariously describing their dad's jobs. The one on the very left of the cookie is so adorable. She says that her dad has a mustache and a beard, and that his head is so big that he can't wear any hats. And the one in the middle's dad is a gynecologist, and he has a very famous line in the movie, which I do not need to repeat. He was played by Miko Hughes, and he was the youngest of all of the kids. He was only 4 years old at the time of filming, so he doesn't really remember much of the filming process. His first big role was in Pet Sematary, and he was in a lot of TV shows as a kid and a few other movies like Mercury Rising and Apollo 13. The twins here are also very funny. Their names are Tiffany and Crystal Materas. I'm probably mispronouncing that. They were also in a few movies as kids. They actually were initially up for the role that went to the lead character, the lead child character, Dominic, who I found out was actually played by a set of twins, Joseph and Christian Cousins. At the time of casting, they were still unsure of whether the main character would be male or female, but they for sure knew that they would have to be played by twins due to the amount of screen time and child labor laws. It would be too much for just one kid to play the character. All of the kids had to go to school at the time while filming, and when the film wrapped up, they all had a little kindergarten graduation for them. Like, how cute is that? So I'm just wrapping up this cookie by adding the script. What you don't see here is that I messed up twice. Both were red letters, of course, that I had to like scrape off and redo. The thing about the red food coloring, though, is that, it stains very quickly, so to remove it, I have to move quickly. And a technique that I use, I don't know why I make it sound like it's so fancy, but I basically just dip a really small brush in just a teeny bit of vodka, and it kind of just erases that stain that, would be there from whatever color I used that I'm removing. So this scene is also one of the best. I think this is my favorite cookie of the set. I actually originally planned on doing a cookie of him screaming "shut up" when he totally loses his mind after being in the class for like 10 minutes, but it turned out quite terrifying, and I just had to take it out and do something else. I'll show it at the end of the video, but it might give you nightmares. Anyway, this cookie was originally going to be of the carpet in the class, and it was going to say, "Get your toy and bring it back to the carpet." But this is so much better. I still wanted to highlight the absolute meltdown that he has. It's just like the funniest thing ever. Arnold Schwarzenegger yelling in general is just hilarious for some reason. So Yeah, this is right after the freak out. So I'm creating a transfer for Kimball as well as a little like text bubble with the transfer. So what I did was I drew him on just a random cake board that I had, and then on top of it, I very tightly taped parchment paper on top so that the transfer could easily be removed once it's dried. And I'm doing two because I knew it was going to be super fragile, and luckily I ended up, breaking one of them. So thankfully I made two so I didn't have to like start it all over again and wait for it to dry. I knew it was probably going to happen. So lately I have been really loving working with these transfers. Cookies, of course, are very time consuming, and the reason why they're time consuming is because you kind of have to do them in like different phases, because for some designs you need to make sure that one part of it dries before you start working on the next part of it so the colors don't run together. And with a transfer you can kind of get two things done simultaneously rather than waiting a few hours or like a day for one layer to dry. You can essentially work on the same layer just in two different pieces and then glue it on top with, a little bit of icing. It also just adds like such a cool dimension to the cookie. Like this cookie ended up almost looking like a little diorama. So definitely going to be doing the transfers a lot more and more. So back to this scene. So he just had, his big freak out in the classroom. He screams at the kids. He makes them cry. So he runs outside of the school, screams some more, as you can see here. And then naturally he remembers that he has a ferret that he can use to calm the kids down. Just like standard protocol for calming down a group of kids that you just screamed at. Just, grab the ferret. So speaking of ferret, I had to do a cookie of the ferret. And just the lines right here, like, what's a ferret? That's a ferret. It's just such like a simple but really weird exchange between him and one of the students. And it's one of my favorite parts of the movie. So there were 9 different ferrets used in the film, and each one was trained for a different skill needed for, the movie. Which is so weird. Another interesting fact about ferrets is that they're illegal to own in California. And ironically, while governor, Arnold supported the ban. So unlike his character, John Kimball, real life Arnold was very anti-ferret, apparently. So I'm getting near the end of the cookie set, so I'm just going to start listing some random facts about the movie while this set wraps up. So the actor that plays the kid that Kimball drops for eating everyone's lunches said that they did 17 takes of him dropping him. And he was the oldest of the whole class of kids there. And he was taller, so it wasn't a long fall at all for him, and he wasn't hurt whatsoever by it. A super weird coincidence with him is that when he was 20 years old, he moved to the San Luis Obispo area in California, and one of his roommates turned out to have also been in Kindergarten Cop. He was one of the kids that is pushing on Arnold's chair on the plane ride. Like, what are the chances of that? So weird. Bill Murray and Patrick Swayze were originally offered the role of John Kimball. I feel like Bill Murray would have been like too funny, and Patrick Swayze just seemed like way too nice of a person. I don't think either would have worked. Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito were also considered for the role. I honestly would love to watch a version of this movie with Danny DeVito as Mr. Kimball. Like, that would be amazing. In 2016, they actually made a Kindergarten Cop 2 with Dolph Lundgren. I didn't see it, but just based off of the trailer, it looks pretty horrendous. I think it went straight to video. Um, I'm really aging myself by saying that, but I don't know like how else to say that. It didn't go to theaters, I guess. Is another way of saying it. Went straight to streaming. I don't know. So the movie was mostly filmed in Astoria, Oregon, but other locations were the Main Place Mall in Santa Ana at the beginning of the movie and LA for all of the classroom scenes. So in the Goonies video, I mentioned that I was able to go to Astoria and see the jailhouse, but I also, of course, was able to see Astoria Elementary, and I honestly was way more excited for that, if I'm being honest. I actually screamed when we pulled up to the school, and yes, I did take a picture trying to scream like Arnold in front of the school. It's not a tumor. So it was one of the lines that Arnold said that wasn't supposed to necessarily be super funny, but the kids kept laughing when rehearsing whenever he would say it because of his accent. And he knew that was, making them laugh a lot, so he made sure to really overemphasize it during the take. And he really has, that ability of just saying things that aren't meant to be funny, funny. He's really good at that. So here is that cookie that just did not make it into the set. It's just far too scary, terrifying. I really hope you don't get nightmares from it. It was just, a disaster. Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching the making of this set. Kindergarten Cop might not be considered a masterpiece or real cinema, but I absolutely love it. It's a movie I watched so much as a kid, and it's forever one of my go to rainy day movies. Now, go watch Kindergarten Cop. Do it now.